This morning we've been having a conversation about how to feel alive, and in our background discussions we've come across some very interesting thoughts and thought we'd share them with you.
Yeah, we were just talking about the idea of, I suppose, coming into presence. We were all talking about the idea of being in the now, and we know that Eckhart Tolle has been a huge catalyst, I think, for people and teaching people to come into the now. And I think sometimes it's what's missing a little bit is the fact that people don't understand that when they're in the now, sometimes that can be a painful place to be. And then people want to avoid that. They don't want to actually really come into the now when they're in a difficult situation, because it's too hard to face the emotional pain that they might feel coming to terms with what's happening in their life, whether it's grief, whether it's, any difficult situation that they might be facing, like even if it's a relationship problem with a daughter or whatever, or with a partner or with a parent or whatever difficult situation. So sometimes when we think of coming into the now, we think of, everything's blissful. But the truth is sometimes when we come into the now, it's not, we have to face those emotions that we've been running from and hiding from with, alcohol addictions or shopping or, all the kind of material things around us that keep us from really sitting with our emotions and starting to process it. And that's what we love to talk about, that really the inner freedom and this kind of this liberation and this revolution happens when we can come into the now and we start to own the process of digesting those emotions that we need to from the past, and then also from giving us the power to be able to be with our life now, so that we can be alive in life, because the only place we can be alive in life is actually in the present moment. And even if it's a difficult stage, it still has that gift to teach us something in the moment, whether it's going through a difficult time or whether it's just amazing time. It's just the emotions are something that people, I think, run from. And that's why myself and Lisa come together to try and speak to that, and to get women to really start to address that, and to also use their intuition to move them through and help them, guide them, from that place of, I suppose, empowerment, rather than kind of running from their life, to come into life, and then to be able to move through life, in a more alive, more aligned way with their true essence and what they're supposed to be here for, Yeah.
I think that's great, Caroline, and it reminds me of the time when my last partnership broke up, and I remember those couple of days just after, where I was just in the fetal position, just so devastated. And I know that a lot of people have experienced that sort of pain where you just never think you're going to get out of it. And what I realized after a couple of days is, if I just sat with it, and it was hard because it was so painful, but really, and the way I did that was I had to stop my mind from adding a story to my suffering. So I was in pain, and then my mind would go, oh, what a bastard, or that shouldn't have happened, or blah, 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 and added the story. And as soon as the story was adding, my pain just amplified so much. So I actually started to do things that stopped my mind. I learned a prayer, and I said that over and over and over again. Like, there were things that I did to stop my mind from telling the story, and I just was able to just feel the feeling. And what I noticed was, when I felt the feeling, I could see the difference between the feeling that was pure, that was just coming up my body, and it came up like a wave, and it was excruciatingly painful. But if I could sit with it, if I could sit with the wave and just, there's grief, there's grief coming up, and I might name it, or I'd like really look into it and really feel it in my body, and I'd allow it, and I'd watch it. And what I noticed was it was nowhere near as painful as when I added the story to it. And I could see the difference between the pain. It was like I could almost see there was a purity when I didn't add my story to it that allowed it to move, and I would watch it move like a wave, and then it would pass.
Yeah.
If I could just sit with it, it would pass. And that honestly got me through that time incredibly quickly, like almost like a miracle. And this is so true. It's like our capacity to be able to see what's coming up for us as a natural process. Like it's natural that we have a feeling around what's happening, and our body needs to process that feeling. And if we can allow that as part of the living experience, and it's painful in the moment, but like you were sharing before, Caroline, if you can do that, all of a sudden everything changes. Your whole being changes, and you just go, oh my gosh, that was just an incredible experience that I learned from.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can turn around and see it as a gift. And I notice, like, the way when I'm consciously doing that now, it's much quicker process. And I know you've talked about this before as well. Like, when you moved, you had the 3 chairs that you spoke about sitting in. Maybe you could share that with them. But the fact that where years ago I would have taken a long time to work through something that was difficult, emotional kind of upheaval. Now, because I know I have that awareness of the emotional process, so I kind of watching it, and you can feel yourself going through it, but you kind of just a deep trust. And that's why I love you talking about the prayer, because it's kind of like when you have that deep trust in the process of life itself, that it's taking you through it. You don't understand it because, you have this kind of, we don't have the greater understanding of the higher knowledge of why we're being put through it. But we know that we're exactly where we're always meant to be at this given moment to learn what we need to learn. It's not that we have the understanding of that, but in hindsight, we always do. And the process is much faster when you have the tools, emotional tools, to move through those painful times. And then it's amazing how the lift comes, and the awareness and the learning, and it's just a lightening kind of your being just arrives, and you just go, whoo. And it's just amazing, that you've kind of had this inner growth because of it. And even though it was a really difficult period, you can be thankful for that. It's fantastic.
It is amazing. And what you're saying is true, because we've been taught in our culture and by our programming, our parents, that nobody's fault. We've got to figure things out, right? So we have a feeling, and we take from the feeling in the body, we jump straight into the head and try and, why am I feeling like this? I shouldn't be feeling like this, or I want to just work through this and get through it as fast as possible, which is why it takes us so long, because we're not actually feeling the feeling. If we just felt the feeling, it would process and move. That is the quickest thing to do. And the other thing that you mentioned before earlier, Carolyn, which I loved, was when you're doing this, when you're in the moment with your feelings, you are supporting yourself. You are there for yourself. So you actually feel supported. So you don't feel as isolated in your pain. You don't feel as alone, because you're actually there for you. And that has an inner feeling of support.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
which is just,
you're in your center. When you really enter it, you're kind of centered. There's a kind of an acceptance of the now. It's a very deep acceptance, which comes it's kind of, I think you kind of go into silence as such. It's like, I think actually it happened to me just a couple of days ago, and I was saying, it was like all the time, I just didn't want to talk about anything. It was like, I just went quiet. I just want to go quiet, because it was like my mind, I just knew my mind wasn't going to do the job. I just wanted to shut it off, even just doesn't want to verbalize anything. And I just went into feeling it. And it was amazing, because that was the optimal thing to do. Because the way it was, like, you can just process an event much faster that way, and it just flows past you, kind of thing, and it's amazing how humans are designed to do that. If you really allow it and you really get aware of it, we're actually designed to move through those periods.
That's so true. And the other thing that happens when you're in the now, not only if you're in the now and the now moment is not optimal, or you think it's not optimal, is that if you do go into the now, that is when past unaddressed feeling comes up. So feelings that you've stored that might be uncomfortable, that you actually haven't dealt with yet, that haven't been digested yet. So it's the same thing. It's like just getting curious about them. Oh, I wonder what is that I'm feeling? What is that? And being that curious, oh, how can I follow that thread? Because every time I do that and follow these threads of little feelings and I go back and I'm just my awareness, putting my awareness in, I often get shown an event from much earlier in my life that I didn't digest the feeling. So for example, I might have had something come up and I've gone in and I've felt it, and then all of a sudden I see myself as a 3-year-old. I'm like, oh, and then as I'm watching and I'm feeling these feelings at the birth of my little sister, for example, the feelings that I had that I never had the opportunity to express and to feel and have acknowledged. And that is like, it's so powerful because you're accompanying yourself into that and you're allowing those feelings to be released. And that is a purifying thing. That is a moment that allows us to purify so that more of us is here, so that we are more present in our body, and so we can be so much more alive.
Absolutely. It's amazing how that skill increases as well, because you can become really aware of, you know, where it's coming from. You know, the way you're saying, it came from a certain period in your childhood, where I suppose that seems probably very difficult for some people to be able to do, but the more you do it, the more it becomes really apparent, doesn't it? It's like it's like a skill that you train. I guess the more you do it, the easier it is to identify, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's experiential, right? So our society has so much emphasis put on, we get knowledge and we think about it and we put our mind to things, but actually this has got nothing to do with the mind at all. Our body's intelligence knows exactly what to do. So when we get out of the way, our inner intelligence, our true intelligence actually shows us what we need to see so that we can heal that place in us. And that is just like, it's amazing. It's an amazing process, and it does get easier over time. And it really, it's our natural state. So it is something that we were naturally born to do.
Yeah. And it's actually, you often talk about freedom, and it is like the letting go. We're really training ourselves to let go all the time. Let go, let go, let go. And the more we let go, the freer we are, and the freer we feel, and the more we are alive, you know, in life, and more dynamic in life. And the better we are in relationships. And that's what we talk about, the diamond relationships. The more present we can be with other people, because the more work we do in ourselves, then the quality of our relationships improve, you know, across the board. Yeah. You know?
Absolutely. And that's just because, like, when we have these experiences that aren't digested as a younger child, like all through our lives, our emotional experiences, they don't grow with us. So we think that we grow in body and we leave them behind, but actually that's not true. They come with us. Everything that we felt, everything that we've experienced comes with us, like this big bundle or this big field, whatever you want to call it. It comes with us, it travels with us, and it sits with us until we actually deal with it and start to release those emotions. And what happens with that emotion, because emotion doesn't have a timeline. It has no concept of past, future, present. It just is. And time, if you know, is something that we've created, like, you know, a couple hundred years ago with the advent of the steam engine. So our emotions don't understand that. So our emotional state and the emotions that we carry have no concept of time. So we still have them with us now. Now, if we have this big bundle of unexpressed and undigested emotion, which could be sadness, hurt, abandonment, and we're holding it with us all the time unconsciously, how can we possibly relate to someone in a pure and efficient way? Like, you can't, because it gets in the way of our capacity to be all that we are in this moment, because we have all this other stuff going on that we're not looking at. And it gets in the way of our capacity to look at the other person and see them for who they truly are in this moment. That emotion gets in the way, and so we see them as something else, or we project the pain that we're feeling onto them and think they're doing it to us. So we cannot, our connection, the depth of our connection and the love that we feel is just so amplified once we start being in this now moment. and letting go of these emotions that we're carrying and just allowing them to be up. So being in the now moment and just allowing that emerging process to happen, such a powerful thing to do for ourselves, our relationships, our energy, our life, like just awesome.
It's the key, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. It's the key. It really is the key.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a juicy conversation.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you everyone for watching and listening to us. We'll be back again this time next week. Please follow us so that you don't miss the notifications. Turn your notification on. And we also do a Monday and a Wednesday live on YouTube and Facebook. If you pop over and find us on, you can find us at iamlisajayne or Flourish by Design. Carolyn Murphy-Bennis, any of those places on Facebook, and the 2 YouTube channels. And, you know, subscribe so that you don't miss the Monday and the Wednesday nights. We have similar conversations. We interview some really juicy people.
Yeah, they're amazing. Wednesday nights are really exciting as well. And then at the moment, Lisa is talking about her book on Monday nights and sharing her keys for the emotional, powerful mother. So yeah, that's been really, really useful, and putting those practical keys into practice in your daily life. So yeah, let's tune in for that too. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you, Caroline. Thanks, everyone.
Over and out from Dublin.
Bye.